And now we're taking the conversation back to how we began this morning, looking at the issues regarding taxation. The Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, has urged the federal government to suspend the implementation of Nigeria's newly enacted tax reform acts, citing concerns over alleged alterations between the versions passed by the National Assembly and those officially gazetted. Recall that a separate complaint by House of Representatives member Abdulsamad Dasuki alleged that what was gazetted differs from the versions lawmakers passed, prompting the House to establish a committee to probe the discrepancies.
The tax reforms, including the Nigeria Tax Bill, Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, were signed into law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in June 2025, with implementation scheduled for January 2026. The association, in a statement signed by Vice President Afam Osigwe, described the discrepancies as raising grave concerns about the integrity, transparency, and credibility of Nigeria's legislative process. It said that the issues strike at the very heart of constitutional governance and called for comprehensive, open, and transparent investigation to restore public confidence. Well, joining us this morning on Breakfast Central, we have the president of the Nigerian Bar Association with us to explain the NBA's position, Mr. Afam Osigwe. A warm welcome to you, sir, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central this morning.
Thank you so very much for inviting me.
Now, what's the position of the Nigerian Bar Association on this discrepancies? The federal government have said, there's no cause for alarm, everything, all is right. But what are your findings and your investigations into this matter?
We have not made any investigation. Indeed, it is not our position to investigate the matter. The National Assembly or the House of Representatives has set up a committee to investigate the matter. And at the moment, I think that it's best for us to leave the House of Reps to do the investigation. Our statement was born out of the fact that the allegations were so weighty that it would not be right for us to pretend that those allegations were not made. The federal government needs to have the confidence of the public, have the moral authority to enforce the provisions of the tax laws, which are aimed at modifying and modernizing and bringing consolidating all the tax laws and bringing them into some piece of legislation and make it easy for compliance by the citizens. And to that extent, the government needs the buy-in and the confidence of the people to enforce a law which the people believe was passed, has no dent, passes every integrity test, so that the people will comply with it and reduce litigation that may result as a result of complaints that some part provisions were added, some were deleted, and then some were modified. It strikes at the perception people have about the act. It strikes at the constitutional basis of the act. And so to that extent, the bar feels that it may be proper to suspend the enforcement of the bill for its authenticity or otherwise to be ascertained, because it is in the government's best interest to see that these things are done, so that enforcement of the law, if found to be the authentic versions signed by the National Assembly, can be done with full confidence that the right thing is being done and that people are being asked to comply with the law validly passed by the National Assembly.
All right, let us see. And I think there's a bit of a concern as to what the actual next steps should be, or on whose table the responsibility lies to make this clarification. There have been calls for the government, because if Mr. Tawedele comes and says that these are just mere allegations and that there isn't any truth to them, there are those who say that he should be the one, or the government should be the one to come out and clearly share these two documents with us. There are others who would argue, based on the fact that he who alleges must prove, that the lawmaker who pointed this out should be able to share this. So who should we hold responsible?
I would like to believe that the lawmaker or lawmakers, because there appear to be more than one of them, while one may have made the allegation on the floor of the National Assembly, it would appear that some other lawmakers have also lent their voice to the allegation. Without wasting our time on the legal niceties about it, an allegation of such a weighty nature has been made on the floor of the chamber of the National Assembly, and the House deemed it important enough to set up a committee. And I think that we should not sweep this under the carpet. Now, coming to about who will prove, the legislative process is supposed to be a recorded one with documents bearing out what has been done or what has not been done. Now, there is what is called the Acts Authentication Act. which requires the clerk of the National Assembly to authenticate and certify that the record of proceedings from both chambers of the National Assembly and transmit them to the President. These documents will prove relevant in the course of this investigation. That's what is called the Hansard, or the record of proceedings in the House and in the Senate, or in the committee if they set a joint committee. This record is very, very important. For me, it goes beyond who asserts and who proves. It strikes at the heart of the lawmaking process in Nigeria. Did the clerk of the National, and what did the clerk of the National Assembly actually certify and transmit? What was actually presented to the President to sign? We shouldn't go into a courtroom trial as if we have an accused person and then we have the prosecutor. It's about public perception. It's about public trust in our public institutions. And all documents should be made available to the public and to all relevant authorities, because it is now enlightened the interest to see that these laws will not suffer a legitimacy question, will not cast an aspersion on us or cast doubt about the lawmaking process in Nigeria and also before the international community. We must do everything to ensure that public confidence is placed on these laws that will show that what was signed by the President either reflected what was signed or did not reflect what was passed or did not reflect it. How we go about it will be very interesting in the next few days, because we also have a lot to do about the public record keeping processes and the trust we place on public officials to do the right thing.
All right. What will happen if the federal government declines calls to suspend the implementation of the tax laws? Because right now, the NBA is calling for
I would not need to be a soothsayer to tell you that litigations will ensue. And if litigations ensue about the constitutionality of this act, we may have conflicting situations where some judges or some courts may injunct the enforcement of the law. And I don't think we need to find ourselves in that situation. The laws are forward-looking, they are modern in approach, they have imposed certain tax obligations, and there should be certainty as what the law stipulates or dictates. And if the implementation of a law is bogged down in litigation, that will create a lot of confusion. And the government needs these laws to be implemented with a lot of confidence that it is in everybody's best interest to see that we confirm the right position and that what is done, what has been gazetted, reflects that. If it does not reflect that, so that either if what the president signed is different from what is gazetted or whatever, I don't know what may have happened. And if what was actually signed and gazetted are the same for what the National Assembly did, for all documents we place in public domain, but we all need to have confidence in these laws for all of us to be able to beat our chest with confidence and say we have these forward-looking modern laws that have for once consolidated all taxes in Nigeria, and there will not be doubt as to what taxes will be paid, and that all incidents of multiple taxations, which this tax also aimed at eliminating, have also been eliminated. I think it is in everybody's interest that we do this. And the public records should be the primary source of the authentication of what was passed, because we have to start with what was passed, then what was transmitted, what was actually assented to, and then what was gazetted, to compare all of them to see that they reflect the will of the people as expressed through the legislature.
While we're waiting for the comparison to take place so that we know what the true position is, and to see whether or not the government will hearken to the call of the NBA to delay implementation, the FIRS has gone ahead to announce that our NIN, our national identification numbers, will be used as our tax identification numbers. They've also announced that the CAC registration numbers will be used as the tax identification numbers. Does this raise any legal privacy or data protection concerns?
You see, the point has to be made that even if a call is being made for the suspension of these new tax laws, which are to take effect from January 1st, tax obligations will still be there, whether because we had to the existing laws, the old laws, or the laws that will come into effect on January 1st. People will have their tax obligations. So I'll take that announcement.
Okay. Afam Osigwe, are you still with us?
Okay. We hope to have his network back up so we can conclude this very interesting conversation. Okay, please go ahead from where you stopped. Go ahead, please. You can go on.
I don't know what you heard me last. The point I was making is that
you can go on.
Use of tax IDs, NIN for individuals, and registration number for corporate bodies as called by FIRS, does not detract from our call for the suspension of enforcement of the new laws. Whether the new tax laws are enforced or whether the extant tax laws, the existing tax laws are being enforced, there must be a way of identifying the taxpayers. So the two calls are not inconsistent. The two statements are not inconsistent. And the government will also, we are not insisting that the government will listen to us, but we advise that the government takes steps to ensure that the truth is ascertained, to put out documents in the public domain, because the government needs to put buy-in and confidence in these laws.
Okay.
It's not about us, it's not about any other person. It's for the good of the nation and about how the world sees us.
Now, Afam Osigwe, the NBA, under your leadership, has seen this vibrance and rejuvenation in fighting the cause of the common man in Nigeria. Another issue that the NBA has taken particular interest to heart is the issue of the police tint permit. The public relations officer of the Nigerian police, Mr. Benjamin Hundeyin, did say that an ex parte order is not the judgment of the court, and against the law and against the advice of the court, have decided that they will go ahead to implement this tint permit order by the Nigerian police. What's the current situation with regards the NBA and the Nigerian police force on the tint permit?
In a decent society, Mr. Hundeyin would have been asked to resign from his position if the person who speaks for the police force will open his good mouth and purport to speak for a law and order organization like the police and say that an ex parte order does nothing. And it shows you how unfortunate it is that some people purport to speak for public bodies. If a court has given an injunction, whether you like it or not, you obey it or you apply to set it aside. And I'm not aware the police has done that. And Mr. Hundeyin is continuing to portray himself as more of a propagandist than a law and order person. And I think it is in the interest of the police that every person, whether police or private persons, are seen to obey decisions of course, because it also augur well for the police and society. And I've listened to him, I've read what he wrote, talking about personal interest. Yes, I have a personal interest in seeing that the police does the right thing. Yes, I have a personal interest in seeing that the police does not become a revenue generating body. Yes, I have a personal interest in seeing that the members of the public are protected from the likely extortionate practices of the police at road checkpoints and at road blocks. If that is a private, personal interest he accuses me of, I plead guilty without any apology. But what we are saying, the court said maintain status quo. And the IGP presided over a meeting between the police and the NBA, where we all as gentlemen agreed to let that decision by the court stand to await the outcome of the case before the court. So you imagine our shock when the IGP or the police came out to say they were resuming implementation. And yet another court in Asaba has issued an order which has been served on the police. And the person who speaks for the police comes out to say that that order, in essence, is meaningless. It should worry all of us. We are only suggesting that might is right and the police is above the law. And that is not the kind of scenario we want to encourage. I will not go into the matter. All I restrict myself to talking about is the issue of the fact that there is an injunction and the police is flagrantly going ahead to violate it. And we should not allow that. I will not talk about the merit of the case because the matter is sub judice. But it pains me that the police is brazenly showing the whole world that has no regard for judiciary and for the law and for the rule of law.
But is it just the police? Would you say that this has become the norm in Nigeria today, where it seems that there is selective obedience to court judgment? We saw what happened with the PDP National Conference, for example. There was a court judgment in Abuja, there was a court judgment in Oyo State, and it seems that there were courts of coordinated jurisdiction giving different judgments. One says stop the convention, another one says go ahead. So, first of all, what role does the judiciary have to play as well? And would you say that there is also an issue with selective obedience or selective compliance with court judgments in Nigeria?
At the recent opening legal year ceremony of the Federal High Court, we lamented that there is selective obedience and enforcement of court orders in Nigeria by many public bodies, especially the police. And I also lamented that the courts are lending themselves to creating uncertainty about what the law said. Before now, it has always been my understanding that the Supreme Court has, in a long line of cases, decided that the issue about who these political parties are internal affairs of parties and are not justiciable. But the recent judgments emanating from Federal High Court and the High Court of Justice of Oyo State leaves me in doubt as to what the law says. And in any society where even a lawyer cannot speak with certainty about what the law says, and where judges are quick to give orders injuncting the holding of meetings of political parties or conventions of parties, should leave all of us worried. That is not the kind of picture we want to present to the world. I thought, like I repeat, that my understanding is that issues about who these political parties are not matters for the court to concern themselves. The internal affairs of the parties. But suddenly I realized that I don't seem to know what the law is. But yes, all of us are contributing to creating anarchy and disorderliness and uncertainty in society. And I hope that that will not, in one way or the other, affect people's interest in democracy and interest in voting for candidates of their choice in their participation in the elections.
All right. I guess that touches it even more to show where you stand, also where the Nigerian Bar Association stands. Just finally, in 1 minute or less, we did also see online where lawyers are speaking about January 2nd implementation of the tinted glass permit, stating that they are willing to offer their services to anyone who is being stopped, apprehended, or who is being arrested by the Nigerian police. We just want to clarify that. Is that in any way true?
Oh, yes. We have activated all our branches and the Human Rights Committee to be on standby to take on the police if anybody seeks to implement that law and seeks to use it to club movement of people on the road or to extort money from them, because it is an abuse of court process and it violates the injunction granted against police by the courts. But we believe that this will not happen. We believe that the Inspector General of Police will know that it will amount to contempt of court for him or any officers under his control to do that. But our people are placed on alert to move into action if such a situation occurs. But our hope is that we don't have to do that. That the Inspector General of Police will order his men not to do that and to await the decision of the courts in respect of this matter.
Just to clarify, seeing as you said you've activated all your branches and the members, how should citizens react if the police should stop them to, for the tint permit issue?
Well, I don't speak for the people, but all I say that any person who is being extorted should refuse to give any bribe. And then they should get the names of the officers and the location and escalate it. Use social media, reach out to the nearest NBA branches available to them. I'll try to bring out some numbers that people can call to be able to activate them into action. But people should not take laws into their hands or fight them. But they should politely tell them that what they are doing is wrong and they violate the court order and they do not have the powers to do what they are doing in the light of court orders restraining the police from doing so at this moment.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mazi Afam Osigwe, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.
And Merry Christmas and enjoy the holiday. If your job permits.
We have no Christmas, but thank you for your kind wishes.
Thank you.